I was hesitant to switch to Claude Code from Cursor. I was comfortable in my workflow. I hadn't used many CLIs, and I didn't want to pay for another subscription. But after 2 months of using it daily, I, like most serious developers, believe it to be the most powerful agentic coding tool out there. In today's video, I'll show you the basics, the key tips I wish I knew when starting out, and how I use it in my everyday AI coding workflow. Let's do it. To set up Claude Code, it's super easy. They have instructions on the Anthropic website right here. Just a simple npm command, then just navigate into your repository and run Claude. Your first time doing it, you'll be prompted to sign in, but that's a quick step. So I can show you here in my terminal, type Claude, and it will give me Claude Code right here. I personally like to mimic it as much as the Cursor experience as possible. Like with Cursor, Command I, you get the tab on the right here. So what Anthropic has built, if I close this, is the Claude Code for VS Code extension. It's free right here. You can see it. Gives me the icon up here. I just click and it gives me the Claude Code experience in that right side panel, which is what I prefer. A quick tip when using the Claude Code extension is when you start it, quickly click Control-C and then run Claude yourself, except with the dangerously skip permissions flag right here. This will allow Claude to edit and run commands on its own without asking for you for permission each time. Just makes for a way smoother workflow. So you can see we can shift tab between modes in Claude Code right here. I mostly stay in this bypass permissions on mode for the reasons I just said, make edits without interruptions. Though you can go to other modes like normal, accept edits on, and plan mode is something I also use when I first get into a project. This won't make edits, it'll just run you by the plan that's going to execute for the feature you want to give it or for the project you want to flesh out. Won't make any file edits, but then this context it makes will then be used in your future edits to the repo. So if it's your first time using Claude Code in a repo, you can use /init. Notice when you type slash, you can scroll through all the slash commands here, and you'll see the init command initializes a new Claude MD file with code base documentation. So what this will do right now is it'll read the whole code base and generate this Claude MD file, basically like a PRD for the repo saying what it does, what technology it uses. This way, every time you ask Claude Code a question or command in the repo, it's not going to have to re-find all this info itself. It's going to refer to that Claude MD file. So a good first step when you're starting out with Claude Code in a project. You can always view and make edits to this file to instruct Claude Code how to act within your repo if you want, though I typically just leave it untouched. The Opus model is what I use for any medium to large tasks I assign to Claude Code. This model is only available to people on the max plan, so I pay $100 and get 5x the usage of Pro plan. You can also pay $200 and get 20x. I haven't hit this, though if you're just starting out, I would recommend starting on the Pro plan. It's a modest $17 investment. You get access to the Sonnet model, which is what I use for quick questions, or if I run out of my Opus credits. Sonnet is still great. Just Opus has that extra juice, which is really powerful for larger tasks. But start with the Pro, get comfortable with it for a week or two. That's what I did. And then that way you can figure out if you don't like the experience, if it's not giving the results you wanted, you can pivot off with a minimal investment. But I used this for 2 weeks Pro and then liked what I was seeing, went to Max, got access to Opus, and saw even more what I liked. So that's how I recommend you start out with the pricing with Claude Code. And like I said, with managing the amount of rate limiting you get, you do want to clear your conversation history with Claude Code. That way you're minimizing the amount of tokens you use. So to start a new chat, I just use /clear. I will typically do this, if I'm starting a new thread of a feature. So, if I work on authentication and then I want to go to homepage styling, definitely clear, reset your chat. Or if I'm like 5 messages deep in a chat, that's when I'll usually pivot over to a new chat, kind of give a summary of what I worked on myself. That way there's not a huge context window, and often the longer the chats, the more you'll see it'll kind of hallucinate and get a little bit of worse behavior. Again, not a hard rule you can follow. I mean, you can go 20 plus messages deep if you want. If you really need all the conversation history, you're working on like a tedious task. Though I try to use clear after about 5 messages. You could also use compact to kind of summarize the current history, but this is also going to use tokens to actually have that language model summarize your previous chat history. So just be aware of that and experiment what works for you. So let's see giving Claude Code a command in action. I have our Flappy Bird React project we built in our Claude Code versus GPT-5 comparison video. And as you can see, this model isn't great. The bird looks nothing like a bird. It takes me forever to get to the pipes. And it's also really hard to even get through a pipe. So what I would do is I use a speech to text application. I use Talktastic. It's totally free and does a great job transferring my speech to text. I find that way I can get more down. I can be more creative when talking to these agentic coding tools, and context is everything when talking. So I would pretty much just recite everything I just said to this tool, maybe not all at once, but these are all kind of light features I want to update, and we'll see how it handles it. I have Talktastic keybound to Option T on my keyboard, so just click that. In this Flappy Bird game, please improve the graphics of the game, like make the bird look more like a bird and give the pipes more details. Also, it takes way too long for the first pipe to come for the user to fly through. Also, the flap animation and size of the pipes make it very difficult to even get through one pipe. Make that easier and give the pipes a little bit more distance in between. In this command, the repo is so small, I don't feel the need to mention a certain file, but you can always type @ and say, if I wanted to make changes to the flappybird.js file, I could type that in and then see the recommendations here, click enter. That would specifically reference that file. That helps you limit your token use so Claude Code doesn't have to go and find the relevant files for the command. You could also do a whole folder if you want, like if you wanted to modify all the components, click enter on the components, similar to how Cursor works. So while this command is going to work, we can also queue up a follow-up command. Like if we wanted to make the bird tie-dye, we could say that now, like make the bird tie-dye color. Don't know how I picked that. And that will automatically be sent once the previous command finishes. So that way you don't have to, write down your ideas. You can just automatically send them off. Claude Code also comes with custom hooks, which are commands you can set up when Claude Code is performing an action. I don't have a ton set up, but I do have a few. So you can go to your home directory Claude folder right here and go into the settings.json. Okay, we're in Xcode, no big deal. But you can see I have hooks right here for notification, which is when Claude pauses its command to ask me a question, or stop. Okay, you can hear that noise in the background. And so for either of these cases, I have it run the command on my Mac for playing this sound, that nice, beautiful glass sound. Might be different on Windows, but this is a helpful command for me because sometimes they can take a few minutes. I'll get distracted, and it's good to know when it's finished, you can hop back into coding. I keep it simple, but they have a bunch of examples in the documentation. All right, let's check out our game. Nice, the pipes are different size. Our bird is tiny and weird, but we made it through one pipe first, so that's good. Definitely the tie-dye colors. Let's see if we can fall down here. Okay, nice, and the pipes got a good upgrade. Cool. Something I do all the time is include screenshots in my Claude Code commands. So what I'll do is take a screenshot of my game or whatever section you'd want to do. I then go to Claude Code. I have a copy to my clipboard. Click Command V to paste it in. Won't show a preview of the image like Cursor, but not a huge deal. And I can say something like as demoed in the screenshot, make the pipes yellow instead of their green. Now that wasn't a super helpful screenshot for this example, but if you're finalizing the UX for the homepage of your Swift UI app You want to say, hey, this border radius is incorrect. Having that visual image will greatly assist Claude Code in making the correct change. And when we see that finish up, just a couple hex color changes, we can see the pipes updated. Nice. And my number one mindset for you when first starting out with Claude Code is to be willing to experiment. There's a ton of tutorials out there. Like I said, I've watched probably 20 plus at this point, all having different workflows, some using agents, which we'll cover later, which is a more complex workflow. Some just using it very simple, like I demoed in this video. And I was a little hesitant, like, oh, do I need the very max plan? Can I do everything with Sonnet? What ratio should I do Pro versus, or rather Opus versus Sonnet for commands? You just gotta be willing to experiment. If you burn a couple extra bucks using Opus by accident, so be it. You learned a valuable lesson. And really be open-minded to switching tools. Like I alluded to earlier, I was dead set on Cursor. And I saw all this Claude Code hype, and I was resistant. And it wasn't until a meetup, my friend Ford, he's like, hey, this is really great. Gave me the same advice to start on the cheap plan and go from there. And I was open-minded, learned a lot in the process, got a lot more comfortable in the terminal as a result of this. And that's something I'll take with me through my entire software engineering career. And I'm already adapted to it. Like, yeah, the Cursor UI is nice, but the performance gap that this gives you is worth it. Another tip is that you can't visually see the file changes Claude Code made to a certain file, which Cursor can, which was something I had to adjust to. But the trick I use is, let's say these are all the files I touched for the visual updates we just made. I would either stage them or just commit them away once that feature is done and I'm happy with it. So then if I were to move on to a feature like adding authentication to create a profile, and then when those changes come in, they wouldn't be mixed up with the visual front end features. So that just gives you a way to manually review your changes, say they're good, or maybe say, hey, in this file it's not right, give it back to Claude Code. So that way it gives you a more visual way to ensure the changes are right before moving on to something else. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be covering more complex Claude Code workflows in the future, like agent mode and how I use it in real, more fleshed out applications. So subscribe so you don't miss those. Like the video if you learned something. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one.